Hi guys, I'm no fan of Piers Morgan. Frankly, I can't stand the guy at the best of times. But my God, he was right on the money here. In this panel debate with Laura Kuenssberg, the journalist and commentator apologised for not holding the government's feet to the fire more. He called out what he saw as a complete lack of preparedness at the beginning of the pandemic, and he even mentioned Boris Johnson hiding in a fridge to avoid journalists. Wonderful stuff. Have a listen to this.
Piers, what did you make of what Oliver Dowden had to say this morning?
I wasn't aware we had a Minister for Preparedness for the pandemic. I was hosting Good Morning Britain in that early period of the pandemic, and I remember challenging minister after minister pretty aggressively about the lack of preparedness and about what I felt was a chaotic, clueless, almost clownish way that they were going about handling that first phase of the pandemic. And it got to the stage where, you may remember, Boris Johnson ran into a fridge to avoid being interviewed by us and then banned all his ministers from appearing on the programme for 8 months. They didn't want to be held accountable. And I was told, you should apologise for going too hard on these guys. Well, having seen what's already come out in this inquiry, I'd like to apologise for not going hard enough. It is quite clear that we were not only singularly ill-prepared, and we've had no preparation, but that everything we handled, from care homes to testing, to controlling the border, to PPE, you name it, we were not only not prepared, but the way we executed the attempt to try and combat the coronavirus pandemic was utterly clueless. Well, and I don't care, by the way, whether they're Labour or Tory or Green or Lib Dem or whoever was in charge. They were the government of this country, in charge in a massive health crisis, and this government absolutely dropped the ball.
I'm almost in complete agreement here. The part I don't agree with is the idea that, well, it doesn't matter which political party was in charge, you know, they would have all dropped the ball here. No, because if we look back at 2016, when exercise sickness was being prepared and being reported on to the government were told at the time, you need to upgrade a PPE, you need to replace it. It's out of date, it's not fit for purpose, it needs to be replaced. And the government at the time ignored that advice. Then we had, of course, Boris Johnson not attending COBRA meetings and ignoring and laughing about the pandemic at the very beginning, telling people just to take it on the chin. Now, I don't think any other political party would have approached the pandemic in the same way. I don't think a Labour government would have ignored reports from experts to upgrade PPE. As far as I know, the last time the PPE was upgraded was when Gordon Brown was in charge. So in 2010 or before 2010. So you did actually have a Labour government who was taking this seriously. So I don't agree with Piers Morgan when he says that it doesn't matter which political party was in charge. Yes, it does. The Tories have a particular way of dealing with different crises. But so many things have happened that we tend to forget some of the interesting aspects of the pandemic and the response to it. Of course, as Good Morning Britain were trying to hold ministers and Boris Johnson to account, Boris Johnson, it seems, advised his government, his administration, not to go on Good Morning Britain, not to be held to account. And for a long period of time, no ministers would give interviews to Piers Morgan or to others on Good Morning Britain. Absolutely terrible. During a pandemic, when government ministers are supposed to be held to account, when they're supposed to be able to answer questions from the public, from journalists, about what course of action they're taking. But once again, it's great that you have somebody like Piers Morgan who was attempting to hold them to account. It wasn't always successful, but while I don't agree with him on many things, I think he was right on the money here. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.